touching call, little girl's mistake, unveils an incredible rescue inspiring a billion hearts. Emma clutched the unfamiliar phone tightly, oblivious to its aging veneer, as her classmates swarmed the playground. Her laughter echoed, tinged with the thrill of shallow swings and climbing frames. But in the recess of her joy, a curious fidget nudged at her fingers. One accidental press, and chaos unfurled as the call connected. 911, Rayla of fear vibrating through the air. Her innocent mind shrouded disbelief. Why was she suddenly enveloped by the vastness of the local park, surrounded by towering trees and sprawling shadows teeming with whispers of loneliness? Meanwhile, Officer Jake sat at his desk, grappling with memories encased in silence. His uniform heavy with expectations wore down his resolve. A father figure gone, friendships faded, and the town he once loved now felt foreign. But that swift, terrified voice cut through the echoes of his past like a beacon. "I can't find my way home," Emma breathed, her words carrying the weight of 1,000 small anxieties. He couldn't ignore it, a child lost. With purpose ignited beneath his uniform, Jake launched into action. Every rush of adrenaline matched Emma's mounting dread. Her world spun like a merry-go-round stuck mid-rotation. Where was everyone? The wind whispered doubts, sending chills down her spine. "I'm Mommy," she stammered, grasping for the solace of familiarity, rooted in the echoes of laughter and stories told while curled up on the couch. Where was that warmth now? The chilling shadows danced, tugging her imagination toward darker corners. Back at the diner, Rachel flipped as plates collided with the table. "Another coffee for you, Jerry," she smiled, a thin veil over accumulating exhaustion. But as her hands moved automatically, her mind raced. A regular, on a break, murmured something offhand. "Child's lost in the park. Police search is on." Humor flickered into a dot of fear, igniting in her chest. Emma doesn't venture off. What if? Rachel's heartbeat resonated like a drummer signaling rocky, impending waves. She had fought for every bit of normalcy. Fear, her ever-present companion. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Rachel's world rapidly narrowed, spiraling down the anxiety rabbit hole. How would she bridge the gap between her desires and her reality? The gentle neighborliness of the diner felt far removed, replaced instead by the specter of inadequacy that echoed through her like thunder. Each face, once brightened by fleeting moments of connection, appeared lined now by shadows of worry and unspoken knowing of the storm that threatened her daughter. At the park, Jake edged deeper into the trees, senses honed to every sound. Emma's quivering voice still hummed in his head, "I'm scared." The words intertwined with his own memories, igniting the empathy burned into him. He would find her. As the first drops cascaded from overhead, an urgent dread broke through the air. Mothers would want their children back. Jake would ensure he fulfilled that promise. Just as he spotted Emma, the heavens broke loose. Rain lashed against puddles, swirling into chaotic torrents as thunder crashed overhead. Lightning sliced through dark skies as they braced against the encroaching storm. In that visceral chaos, everything else unspooled: the past, the future into the uncertain present. The clock raced. Torn between hope and despair, both Emma and Rachel faced the tempest unyielding. Their spirits, still ignited by love, now fought the furious storm. Who would emerge safe when everything they held dear was threatened? The rain splashed against Emma's feet as she took a tentative step forward, her small hands trembling against the cool, damp surface of the phone. The weight of overwhelming insignificance pressed against her chest. She was just a child, lost in a vast, storm-drenched wilderness. In that moment of clarity, fear morphed into a chilling resolve. She would not wait for help. She would take action. In the midst of the thunder's growl, whispers of courage sparked within her mind, recalling the stories of brave heroes swirling through her imagination. Could she be one herself? Tentatively she glanced around, assessing the looming shadows. Her young heart beat louder, drumming out the echoes of despair she had felt moments ago. "I have to move," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the downpour. She took a deep breath and began to walk, her small feet finding rhythm in the chaos. Across the park, Jake closed in, adrenaline fueled by the urgency of time. Spotting the glint of a yellow raincoat in the distance, he broke into a sprint. Every step grounded him in the reality of Purpasa. Purpasa's past had almost stripped away. This wasn't just law enforcement. This was personal redemption. He had to save Emma, not just from the storm but from the fears that buried themselves in innocence. "Keep moving, toward the sound of my voice," he shouted above the roaring wind, his voice breaking through the drumming rain. The sight of the girl, once lost, and now bravely approaching the sound of a stranger, filled him with hope and a flickering sense of pride. Meanwhile, Rachel's world was narrowing down to fragmented moments throughout the years. As the diner bustled around her, the sounds morphed into a cacophony: muffled laughter, clattering dishes, and buzzing conversations, all levels of distraction. She could scarcely hear the weighty silence that squeezed her heart. Her body felt like it was locked in a vice. "Run, find her." Rachel grabbed her coat and dashed from the diner, joining the throng of rushing patrons, uncertain and unsteady in their own quiet storms. As she reached the parking lot, she felt the electric charge of anxiety electrifying her limbs. She could not go back inside, crushed beneath the weight of their glances. Instead, she fixed her eyes forward, her determination laser-focused. Flash of lightning illuminated the park, ahead a fleeting glimpse of where the danger lay hidden. Emma, the name echoed in her mind, a lifeline tethering her to hope. Rachel's heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of the falling rain, each pulse igniting an ember of strength inside her. She had to go forward to save her daughter. Emma's quiet resolve began to unravel itself. As she stumbled upon a clearing, her surroundings morphed from shadows into glimpses of potential clarity. Maybe she could find her way out of the storm, not just physically but within herself. "Emma." Jake's voice rang through the blanket of rain, slicing into her fears. For the first time she glanced back, a decision made in that moment. The fear of separation was now outweighed by the urgency of longing for connection. She instinctively stepped toward the sound. Rachel, droplets soaking her quickly, spotted Jake crossing through the trees. All the fragmented fears surged. The untethered threads of their lives intertwined in that earnest call. Time itself seemed to hold its breath as she rushed to catch up, eclipsing both her doubts and her hesitation. Each step forward was a testament, a mantra repeating in her thoughts: "Find Emma. Find Emma." The storm didn't stand a chance against the fire inside her. Just then, the rain halted abruptly, yielding to silence. For the first time, she felt hope, buoyed by unity. But just as Rachel stepped into the clearing, her heart lurched. The reality of fear loomed again, as she realized that running toward the unknown could lead to salvation or a bitter, dark end. In that fleeting moment, a question sliced through her thoughts. What if she wasn't prepared for what lay ahead? The storm rumbled back to life as the obscured path beckoned them forward, each individual aware that the next steps could unravel new layers of their intertwined realities. The mystery deepened as the trees swayed ominously, a reminder that every choice bore weight, leading them closer to pivotal revelations about themselves. Who would emerge from the tempest unscathed, reborn from their shadows? Emma stood transfixed at the edge of the clearing, the tension in her tiny body radiating uncertainty. The thinning atmosphere of the storm swirled around her, but in the fading light of the storm, clarity began to dawn. With each heartbeat, she felt the rapid ebb and flow of fear and strength, fighting for dominance within her. The need for action collided with the unsettling reality of her situation. She listened intently to Jake's voice, a lifeline woven through the howling wind. It was not just a call, it was a promise to transform her fear into something actionable. However, the darkness that enveloped her still bore down heavily, feeding her thoughts with doubts. What if she wasn't the hero she imagined? What if she faltered, lost amid the branches and shadows? Yet, echoing in her mind were the stories of brave figures, who faced seemingly insurmountable odds. In that moment, the weight of insignificance began to shed from her shoulders, each drop of rain a reminder of her growing resolve. Who would she become in this moment? Shifting her focus, she took a determined breath and stepped confidently towards Jake's voice, grounding herself with the weight of possibility. Jake, meanwhile, was caught in a whirlwind of his own making. His past pressed upon him, memories of lost opportunity overshadowing his present mission. I can't let her down, he thought, his own heart pounding in rhythm with the relentless storm. He pushed through brambles and fallen branches, his mind racing through what failure would mean, not just for Emma, but for himself. The specter of past mistakes taunted him, reminding him of corners he had turned away from instead of confronting. But now, not only a child's life hung in the balance, this was also about his redemption. He had vowed to himself that he would face whatever emerged from the shadows, step by step. As Rachel charged ahead, thoughts melded into a singular focus. Every pulse of adrenaline cleared the fog of oncoming dread. She'd spent too long buried in her hesitation, a ghost in her own life, and now she refused to be the mother who stood idle. The moment she reached the tree line, her eyes darted desperately, searching for any sign of her daughter, all the while questioning her own readiness for whatever lay ahead. Please let me be enough, she whispered to herself, clenching her fists tightly as if to channel the storm's fury into her defiance. With a sudden burst of conviction, she sprinted toward Jake and Emma's voices, readiness igniting like a fire within her. She would not let the invisible binds of insecurity restrict her any longer. In the ominous quiet between each clap of thunder, their lives twisted around each other more intensely. The chaotic symphony of rain died down, replaced by a pulsating silence, filled only by the whispered hopes of the three individuals forging ahead together. Resilience, fear, and an unfamiliar strength danced in the storm's wake, pulling them toward convergence. As Jake reached Emma first, a surge of emotion flooded through him. He crouched down to her level, fixing his eyes directly on hers, ready to offer not just his hand, but the belief that they would emerge from this ordeal, intact, together, emerging from the storm not the same as before, but transformed. Yet, just beyond the trees, something stirred a rustle, an unexpected movement among the thick foliage. Jake's instincts flared immediately. Had they unintentionally drawn closer to danger? The rising tension wrapped around the group, as Rachel's heartbeat thundered in her ears. The time had come for all of them to confront whatever lay hidden, just beyond the screams of wind and rain. Yet holding on to the heart-wrenching question, what awaited them in the shadows? Jake tensed, his breath catching at the sound. Every instinct screamed at him to be wary. He couldn't let the fear of what lurked in the shadows extinguish the flicker of hope he felt for Emma. The familiarity of recent failures bubbled beneath his surface, but he fought to keep it at bay. This was not the time to falter. Not when Emma needed him most. Stay close to me, he whispered, his voice steady in an effort to reassure her, despite the mounting dread coiling in his stomach. He could see Rachel charging toward them, determination radiating from her. She would not be the passive observer any longer. This was a moment of action, a time for heroes, however flawed. As Rachel entered the clearing, her eyes were wide, scanning the tree line for Emma, the intense energy of a mother's love surging through her veins. What if she found her daughter wounded? What if she was not enough to save her? Tears threatened to spill, but she swallowed them down. The rustling grew louder, an unsettling sound that seemed to be drawing closer, and the trio instinctively huddled together. Jake placed a protective arm around Emma, grounding her against his side. Rachel mirrored his stance, terrified yet fueled by a primal instinct to defend her own. Whatever it is, we face it together, she affirmed, her voice tremulous yet fierce. The promise bolstered Jake's resolve. They didn't have the luxury of fear now. They had come too far, faced too much to turn back now. The rustling grew undeniable, and with each sound, the shadows loomed heavier. What emerged, however, was not a monster, but a small animal, darting into the clearing, wide-eyed and frightened. Relief washed over them momentarily, but it was followed by the rush of energy, a reminder that danger was still a heartbeat away. Keep moving, Jake called out, gently steering Emma and Rachel back into the thick foliage where they could regain cover from any lurking menace. The storm's remnants clung to them, adding another layer of urgency. Where is she? Rachel forced herself to focus, frantically pushing aside branches, scanning for any sign of her daughter. I should have been with her. Jake's heart braced for Rachel's remorse. He understood it all too well. This isn't over. We'll find her, he reassured. But doubt threaded through his certainty. Could he promise that? The weight of expectations, not just for Emma but for Rachel, loomed heavy. Each step they took felt like a deliberate plunge into the unknown, an act of faith amidst chaos. The path ahead twisted and turned through darkness, illuminated only by the intermittent flashes of lightning. Fighting against the urge to retrace their steps, Rachel inhaled sharply, stubbornly straightening her spine. Emma is waiting for us, she reminded herself. I won't fail her. Each thought became a mantra, pushing down the errant fear creeping into her psyche. The silence that followed felt deeper, frantic energy coiling within them as they ventured further into the woods. Their unity offered a strange comfort, but the pang of uncertainty remained. As they pressed on, something shifted within Jake, a sudden clarity breaking through his fog of guilt. He realized this was not merely about rescuing Emma, it was a fight against his own lingering regrets. But confronting his past simultaneously tormented him, whispering that he might still fail to protect them. And just then, a distant cry echoed, piercing through the dense foliage, a faint voice in the storm. Help! Jake's heart raced. That sound didn't belong in this tempest. He locked eyes with Rachel, the urgency settling over them like a shroud. The stakes had just escalated. Did you hear that? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Rachel nodded. Determination etched across her face as they prepared to follow the sound. The only question that loomed now was whether they would have the strength, in this defining moment, to confront whatever lay ahead. The cry echoed again, reverberating through the trees like a siren, an urgent plea that clawed at Jake's insides. He felt the moment stretch, time warping around them. Rachel's grip on Emma tightened, and Jake could sense the collective weight of their fear igniting a ferocious urgency within him. This was no longer just about confronting his regrets. The stakes had risen to a life-and-death reality. Let's go, he urged, making a decisive move toward the sound. His mind shifted into overdrive, parsing through strategies. Stay low. Keep an eye out for hazards. Communicate consistently. He could feel the adrenaline coursing through him, sharpening his focus, while blurring the still-present shadows of doubt. The forest closed around them. Stale smells blended with the earthy scents of damp leaves. Each footfall felt purposeful, echoing a commitment to not only find Emma, but to redeem himself in the process. His fear of failure morphed into a compelling drive to act. If he could confront this new reality with courage, perhaps, just perhaps, he could reshape the narrative he lived with. Rachel, feelings of desperation and resolve battling within her, pushed her way through the underbrush. Fear for Emma created a pulse of energy that spurred her forward. Stay close, Emma, she instructed, though the strain in her voice betrayed her anxiety. Jake noted the way she moved, her shoulders squared off against an intangible foe, face set with fierce determination. He couldn't help but admire her strength, even as it sparked an unsettling reflection within him regarding his own shortcomings. What kind of man cowered in the corners of his mind when faced with turbulent waters? Rachel's resolve illuminated a stark gap between what he was and what he could be, a truth he couldn't ignore any longer. After what felt like an eternity of weaving between trees and shadows, they stumbled into a small clearing where the silhouette of a child lay in the grass. Light washed over them as they reached the clearing, and Jake's heart plummeted when he saw the figure. A small girl with wild hair, tangled and drenched, kneeled with tears streaming down her face. Help, she cried again, her voice cracking like thunder in the silence. Emma, Rachel gasped, rushing toward her daughter, while Jake remained rooted in place, shackled momentarily by a rush of conflicting emotions. At that moment, adrenaline pulled him free from his stupor, and he sprinted behind Rachel, twin manifestations of overwhelming relief and fear. He could feel his past self cowering within, battling against his primal urge to reach out and help. As Rachel knelt beside Emma, whispering soft words of comfort, Jake's thoughts spiraled. He had promised himself that he wouldn't fail them. This was the moment to act, to forge a new path that diverged from cowardice, reckoning with the ghosts he had carried for too long. Emma, are you hurt? Rachel asked, her voice trembling as she inspected her daughter. A tiny head shook in response. I just got scared. Jake inhaled sharply, every fiber of his being vibrating with an urgency to shed his past failures to embrace this moment. His heart hammered as he weighed the personal evolution occurring within him. Determined to act rather than descend back into hesitation, he found his footing and knelt down beside them. We're here now, and we'll get through this together, he reassured, feeling the weight of his words deepen with newfound conviction. But as he comforted them both, a rustle nearby brought a cold chill along his spine. They weren't alone anymore. The shadows were shifting again. The question lingered, sharper now. Would their collective strength be enough to face whatever darkness lay ahead? The rustling intensified, a violent whisper creeping through the underbrush. Jake's heightened instincts painted a vivid picture of danger looming beyond the clearing. He felt his heart lurch, the pulse in his temples matching the unsteady rhythm of fear vibrating in the air. Stay back, he urged, raising a hand as a precaution. Instinctively positioning himself between Rachel and Emma, it was a protective gesture, born not just of instinct, but also of an urgent desire to be the man they needed. For a moment, the essence of self-doubt threatened to strangle him again. But the sight of Emma's tear-streaked face reignited his resolve. What if confronting this unknown brought the very failure he feared? Yet, failure had been a constant companion. Now, it was time to forsake its grip. Every fiber in him knew that this moment could pivot his life's narrative if he dared to embrace it. Rachel, stay close. We need to be vigilant, he said, his voice steadier than he felt inside. Gathering his breath, Jake blinked into the dimming light, straining to see the source of the disturbance. A shadow darted between the trees, a figure, distorted and unrecognizable. It could be a wild animal, or something more sinister. Logic, however, did not escape him. Each option held agonizing implications. Was he prepared to confront either? Rachel's soft whimper broke through the tension. I can't lose her again, Jake. The fear in her voice collided with his own. It was a fork in the road. Would he perpetuate the cycle of timidity, or rise against the chaos? Slowly, Jake's breath settled into a rhythm. He crouched low, his body mirroring a bowstring, tightly coiled and ready to unleash. He felt like a puppet on the edge of a precipice. Now was his chance to sever the strings. Together, he murmured, aware that his role extended beyond mere shelter. It was to be a participant in this critical moment of collective survival. Their breaths merged into a hymn of courage, a silent acknowledgement of the unity they shared. Jake scanned the surroundings, willing himself to identify the world outside the emotional storm inside him. Emma needed more than comfort. Lessons learned from his past failures floated to the surface, wisdom birthed from the depths of regret. Emma, he said softly, mindful not to frighten her further. Breathe with me. In, out, he demonstrated, guiding her focus away from the turmoil lurking nearby. The inspirational strength of a father figure had been absent from his life, but the desire to become one surged fiercely now. As they inhaled together, Rachel watched him, her eyes glimmering with burgeoning faith, a vintage type of admiration that he had long sought. It anchored him, grounding his spirit. She must have wondered if this memory would redeem her own past disappointments in him. The shadow shifted again, its form becoming clearer. Jake's stomach curled. It was a wild animal, unharmed yet unnaturally curious about the group. The woodland light created an ethereal aura, almost enchanting. He realized it was a fawn, eyes large and wondrous, innocent but accompanied by the caution of being newly birthed into the world. He allowed himself a moment of relief, the desperate currents swirling within subsiding. It wasn't their enemy, but a creature merely observing. Yet, that brief flicker of tranquility was disturbed when additional rustling ignited from deeper within the trees. The urgent unpredictability of nature twisted his gut again. What was lurking there? The air thickened, laden with a new tension. Could this forest hold more than mere shadows or gentle creatures? What would emerge next? Jake. Rachel's tremble interrupted his thoughts, pulling his focus back to the present, where uncertainty loomed like an ever-present storm cloud. He took a deep breath, mentally steeling himself for whatever was to come. The shadows were shifting, but they didn't merely hold threats. They possibly housed opportunities for aid, for redemption, for growth. As he readied himself, The piercing sounds returned stronger than before, a cacophony that hinted at the encroaching chaos. "Stay close," he urged, adrenaline firing him forward again. The battlefield of doubts behind him dissolved into a singular focus. It was time to face the unknown. What awaited them in the depths of the forest could shape everything: triumph, terror, or transformation. The moment had come to confront what truly lay hidden in the shadows. Jake's heart pounded in his chest as the cacophony swelled, igniting an ancient survival instinct buried deep within him. Each rustling branch and calling bird transformed into a siren, forewarning the potential hazards swirling in the growing dusk. It was a crucial moment where choices loomed larger than life itself. He was no longer just a protector. He was on the edge of defining who he truly was. "Prepare for anything," he whispered, as much to Rachel and Emma as to himself, drawing on a newfound clarity. The image of the fawn flickered through his mind. That creature, so innocent yet undeniably vulnerable, mirrored the innocence he now felt he must defend. The stakes had never been higher as he forced himself to confront the limitations he had always accepted. Would he continue to let fear dictate his actions? "Can you hold my hand?" Emma's small voice trembled, filled with a mixture of hope and fragility that cut through the chaos surrounding them. Jake knelt, reaching out and gently clasping her tiny fingers within his own. Something shifted in that moment. He wasn't just a figure in her life, he was creating a reality where her confidence could blossom. "Look at me, Emma," Jake instructed softly, leaning close so she could see the sincerity in his eyes. "We're going to find a way through this, together." He could feel the steady heartbeat of purpose begin to course through him. Layers of his past failures lifting as he committed to protecting this fragile moment of connection. With each steady breath, Jake was no longer just driven by fear. He was propelled by a desire to inspire strength in this young girl. The rustling intensified outside their protective bubble, more menacing, as if whatever was advancing had sensed the charge in the air. Jake dared to glance deeper into the forest's shadows, evaluating the threat. This was a confrontation, an unblinking challenge, that pulled at the very fabric of his identity. What if it isn't lethal? What if it opens a path to something greater? A subtle shifting in the trees snapped Jake back to reality. His gut churned, uncertainty colliding with the realization that he had to take command of the moment. This was about more than just surviving. It was an opportunity to demonstrate trust amid chaos. "Rachel, I need you to think," he urged, moving to center her attention. "If something comes, we stay calm. Remember our plan." Their previous discussions had revolved around scenarios like these, fraught with peril, yet brimming with potential. He had taught her to adapt, to embrace uncertainty, not fully aware that those lessons were now his lifeline, too. Gathering their strength, Jake positioned himself slightly in front of them, tension coiling within him as he anticipated the worst. The atmosphere thickened, heavy with unspoken dread, yet he pushed back against the inkling of panic, rising like bile in his throat. "Trust in what we've prepared for," he affirmed, locking eyes with Rachel, laying bare his conviction. "We can't control what lies ahead, but we can control how we respond to it, together." Just when it seemed the shadows would overwhelm them, a large figure erupted from the underbrush. Heart racing, Jake's focus sharpened, adrenaline igniting a primal instinct. The creature was not alone, a swirling mass of chaos following in its wake. Jake's resolve waned momentarily. Threatened by a fleeting thought, were they truly prepared for what lay ahead, or had he put them all in danger? "Stay back," he shouted, instinctively stepping forward as the first creature broke through the trees, and what he saw changed everything. The realization crashed around him. This was no mere wild beast, this was a pack, eyes glinting in the fading light, primal and watchful. Yet before he could fully comprehend the implications, another force converged on them from the right, a figure, dark and towering, with an unexpected aura. What had come charging into the clearing from the woods might have the power to redefine everything that Jake believed about strength and protection. "Jake, what are you doing?" Rachel's voice splashed cold fear against his determination. The shadows fell away, revealing not an enemy, but a reflection of Jake's innermost struggle. Could he summon the courage to face not just the terror in front of him, but the very depths of his own limitations? The outcome would determine everything: his worth, their futures. The bond that held them together now, in this palpable moment of uncertainty. As uncertainty loomed, Jake prepared to confront not just the pack that threatened to unravel their safety, but the man he was becoming. Would he forge ahead into the unknown, or retreat into his past, a choice that would forever alter the path of their lives? Jake's breaths came in quick, rhythmic bursts as he locked eyes with the towering figure emerging from the shadows. His heart thudded loudly, but within him, a flicker of determination sparked. This moment wasn't merely about survival. It was a crossroad that would define him. He could retreat into the familiar safety of fear or step forward, embracing the challenges that lay ahead. The pack, with their watchful eyes, scrutinized Jake as if they could sense the turmoil roiling within him. Time seemed suspended, each second stretching uncomfortably as he weighed his options. He glanced down at Emma, her small hand gripping his tightly, belief in his strength radiating from her innocent gaze. In her, he found the push he needed. "Stay close, both of you," he instructed, his voice steadier than he felt, grounding himself in the moment. Behind the wild pack, the dark figure solidified into focus. It was a man, tall and imposing, clad in tattered clothes that hinted at a rugged life spent on the edge of civilization. Yet it was his eyes that captivated Jake, an unsettling mixture of wariness and warmth. "Jake," Rachel whispered, anxiety lacing her tone, pulling him back to their precarious reality. He felt an urgent need to protect them, but a deeper urgency blossomed. Could this stranger offer knowledge, insight, or even support? "Are you lost?" Jake called, voice projecting more confidence than he genuinely felt. The figure paused, the pack at his feet seeming to fall into an alert yet non-aggressive stance. "Not lost," the man replied, his voice low and gravelly, but layered with a strange calmness. "Searching." Jake's curiosity bloomed, entwining with apprehension. What was this man seeking? More importantly, could the encounter steer Jake toward understanding his own journey? The rustling of the branches and the pack's quiet growls filled the space between them, urging him to act. "Searching for what?" Jake pressed, emboldened by the flicker of hope that fueled him. He felt a connection, as if their destinies were somehow intertwined, waiting for a revelation. "Strength," the man replied evenly, eyes scanning Jake and the children closely. "Protection comes from within. Every soul has a guardian spirit, but you must awaken it." Those words struck Jake like new beginning. Wasn't that what he was striving for? To embody protection, to become the guardian he needed to be for Emma and Rachel. In that instant, he wrestled with vulnerability and purpose. "And how do I awaken it?" he asked, voice strained with the weight of expectation. The man stepped closer, eyes piercing through the dim light. "By facing your fears, not fleeing from them." With those words hanging in the air, realization dawned on Jake. The confrontation wasn't with the pack, or even the enigmatic figure before him, it was with himself. He had wrongly assumed that fear was an enemy to dismantle. Instead, it was a challenge to embrace. The urgency to protect Emma and Rachel ignited a resolve within him that he never knew he carried. A low growl from the pack reminded him of their presence. This was a test, each element at play designed to push him beyond his self-imposed limits. He had taught Rachel and Emma to face uncertainty. What good would it do if he faltered now? Together, Jake thought, feeling the weight of their hands intertwined. "We face this." In that moment, knowing that they depended on him, Jake shifted his stance. He stepped closer to the pack, heart steadying in rhythm with his newfound resolve. No longer shackled by fear, Jake braced himself for the unknown expanse of possibilities ahead. "Then let's awaken them together," he declared, drawing upon an inner strength as raw and primal as the wilderness surrounding him. The man smiled slightly, the pack shifting in response. Before Jake could further contemplate the implications of his commitment, another loud crack disrupted the stillness. From the depths of the woods, greater shadows mixed with fear, threatening to descend. Jake felt the tension ricochet through him. The moment of truth had arrived, and now he had a choice. How would he respond when the next challenge tested his resolve, an embodiment of everything he had yet to confront? Would he harness it, or would uncertainty quench the flickering flame within? The air grew thick as the sound of crashing branches and rustling leaves surged like a dark wave through the forest, prompting Jake's instincts to flare. His heart pounded, not just in fear, but an acute awareness of the weight of the moment pressing against him. The imperceptible hesitation that had characterized his earlier encounters faded away, chiseled down by urgency and the clear vision of his role as protector. "Keep your backs to me," he instructed Emma and Rachel as he positioned himself slightly in front of them. His voice carried a newfound authority, fueled by a deep-seated understanding of what was at stake. "I won't let anything happen to you." The children nodded, their trust bolstering Jake's resolve even further. He felt a swell of energy, almost as if the forest itself mirrored his determination. The figure, a lighthouse of stability amidst chaos, remained steadfast, his watchful gaze fixed on Jake. "Are you ready for what comes next?" the stranger asked, tone even, as if they were engaging in a simple conversation rather than standing on the brink of danger. Jake's mind raced. The words echoed in him as the sounds of the approaching threat quickened. Yet it was not just fear that surged within him. It was a call to awakening, a realization that shifting gears from fear to courage required grappling with the part of himself that had long been dormant. Gathering his courage, Jake nodded sharply. "I need to know what I'm facing. Tell me more about this guardian spirit you mentioned." "Your guardian is not just a force of protection. It's a source of inner guidance. To access it, you must confront your fears head-on, the very fears you've kept buried," the man responded, voice like gravel, grounding yet fierce. Jake grappled with the idea. From a young age, he had waded through his fears, but they had occasionally drifted into the background, suppressed rather than addressed. What if this next encounter, the impending threat, was meant to drive him to confront the essence of those fears? Then, as if on cue, two imposing figures emerged from the shadows, their forms larger than the pack. These were not simply beasts or primitives. They seemed to amplify the danger, a physical manifestation of what Jake had repressed. He could feel Emma's small hand trembling, a reminder of his purpose. Ignoring the instinct to recoil, Jake took a step forward, an act looping back to the awakening he sought. There it lay, beneath their fierce appearances. This was the challenge, begging for confrontation, and it was time to unearth his inner strength. "I face you not out of anger or vengeance, but for clarity," he asserted, voice steady as he addressed the newcomers. "I'm no longer afraid." As the figures paused, a moment of muted recognition passed between them and Jake. Their malice diminished, replaced by curiosity. Perhaps they sensed the resolve growing from his own resolve, and the anchoring belief in the innocence of the children at his side. "Jake," the man beside him murmured quietly, eyes narrowing, "the guardian within you is observing. You must decide now if you will listen, or let fear overtake your spirit again." A current of tension pulsed between them, and Jake felt the tension of this moment coalescing. Amidst heightened stakes, a fragment of clarity emerged. He could either continue to grapple with his self-imposed limitations, or lean into the shift this challenge demanded of him. The shadows shifted, a chaotic tornado swirling in and out of focus. Their uncertainty mirrored his own internal struggles, gnawing at the old fears he had hoped to erase rather than confront. Yet now, insights crystallized like droplets of water forming on glass. This was what he sought, a moment suspended in time that could reshape everything. As the menacing forms edged closer, Jake took a deep breath. "This is mine to embrace, and together we'll emerge." Suddenly, with a powerful roar, one of the figures lunged forward, followed closely by the second. In that instant, Jake understood. The confrontation was not solely physical. It was about deeply entrenched fears taking form, and he was ready to wrestle them for his transformation. Would this decisive moment ignite his awakening, or push him into a whirlpool of doubt? The answer hung on a precipice, teetering between courage and the lingering shadows of old fears. With a deafening roar, the first figure lunged toward Jake, its fierce eyes locking onto him with a predatory intensity. There was no time to hesitate. Jake's instincts ignited, and he embraced the surge of adrenaline racing through his veins. In that instant, he chose to confront the embodiment of his fears, instead of retreating. "Not today," he shouted, grounding himself in the moment, channeling every ounce of resolve he had long suppressed. He would not be the man who cowered in the face of shadows. This was his moment of awakening. As the creature barreled toward him, something shifted within Jake. The flicker of fear that once paralyzed him transformed into fierce determination. He remembered his promise, to protect Emma and Rachel, to become the guardian they needed. Together we face this, he repeated mentally, a mantra pushing him forward. The beast lunged, and Jake sidestepped just in time, his body reacting instinctively. He could feel Emma squeezing his hand tighter, her silent presence serving as a grounding force. With each dodge he became more aware of his own strength. It was not just a physical confrontation. Each movement represented a reclamation of his power, a battle against the invisible chains that had bound him for so long. "Rachel, stay behind me," he urged, his voice a rock amid the storm of chaos. Determined, he focused on the adversary before him, moving with a fluidity he hadn't realized he possessed. The shadows of self-doubt melted away, each breath becoming a betrayal to his past. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, he noticed the second figure hesitating, watching him with an unexpected intensity. Jake felt something shift. There was an unspoken understanding in that moment. If he could demonstrate courage, perhaps others would follow. "We can do this," he shouted, urging Rachel and Emma forward, reminding them of their strength and unity. The approaching creature's momentum began to falter, confused by Jake's refusal to flinch. In that heartbeat of hesitation, an unexpected dawn broke within him. "Your guardian spirit is with you," the dark figure had said, and there within him, a powerful resilience began to bloom. Recalling the stories of brave heroes that inspired him as a child, Jake summoned that courage to turn the tide. "I am not just fighting for myself," he proclaimed, an echo of newfound confidence reverberating through the clearing. "I am fighting for Emma, for Rachel. My past does not define my future." The first creature paused again, almost as if reconsidering its course of action. Jake turned to Rachel and Emma, their eyes wide with belief. Each heartbeat echoed their truth. The journey they were on was a collective one, not relegated to fear, but alive with strength and growth. With a deep breath, Jake lunged forward, meeting the beast's charge head-on, and for the first time in years, he felt solid ground beneath his feet. The battle was fierce and raw, but he embraced it with every fiber of his being. What he faced wasn't merely the creature, but the specters of regret, failure, and self-doubt, the shadows he needed to overcome. As the clash of wills continued, a new sensation coursed through him. It was clarity and understanding tinged with victory. This was no longer just survival. It was transcending limitations. He felt the support of the woman and child behind him, each shared heartbeat a testament to their intertwined fates. In a final burst of energy, he stepped into the storm of fear and let it challenge him. With one decisive move, Jake plunged forward, forcing the creature to yield. It turned, momentarily disoriented, and in that instant of vulnerability, Jake felt the weight of past failures lift. He had found his voice, his steely resolve, the embodiment of protection resonating within him. Time stood still as he locked eyes with Rachel and Emma, their belief fortifying him in a way he had long sought. "We are strong," he yelled, the declaration ringing through the woods, breaking the spell of uncertainty. Their unity became palpable, forming a defensive wall against the dark energy that had filtered through the chaos. With a growl of frustration, the first creature finally retreated, its confidence shattered by Jake's defiance. The second figure hesitated before following, as if sensing that strength had shifted in the air. Heaving breaths filled the clearing, the remnants of a battle dissipating like fog in the morning sun. This was the moment of truth confronting, not just the beasts outside, but the man he could now proudly say he had become. As silence enveloped them, Jake turned to Rachel and Emma, their eyes bright with pride and newfound confidence. Together, they had faced the storm and emerged unscathed, transformed. "Well done," Rachel whispered, tears glazing her eyes. But these were no longer tears of fear. They were tears of relief and pride, swelling with the beauty of victory in adversity. Jake felt warmth spread through him, a sense of belonging and growth that resonated deeply within his core. He had arrived at a place of light, having conquered the tempestuous shadows of his past, now defined by love and responsibility. Together, he affirmed, feeling the strength of their bond. This victory was collective as much as it was personal. In this defining moment, Jake understood, growth was a continuous journey. Each challenge faced with courage would ripple outward, crafting a legacy of resilience for Emma and Rachel. They stood not just as a family born of blood, but united by experiences. Powerful transformations that forged them into who they were meant to be. Emerging from the depths of fear, they stepped into the light, where challenges would transform into opportunities. Each heartbeat a reminder that redemption was as close as the courage to face one's truth. Each of their lives would be forever marked by this experience. But most importantly, they would carry forward a spirit of resilience, spirited and unyielding. This was not just survival. This was living in its conviction. They found purpose. And with that clarity, they ventured forward, ready to embrace whatever awaited them next. Now, if you felt inspired by Jake, Rachel, and Emma's journey, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel. Don't wait even one more second to share this incredible story with your friends. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because you matter. Comment your thoughts and theories about this conclusion below. Let's continue this journey together. Your support is what keeps these stories alive.